Okay, ladies and gentlemen. You all right? Just getting ready now for the unveiling. 1 second now.
My name is Mary English. I'm the chairman of the Community Association.
We love the whole show. 1 minute.
On behalf of the Clondulane Community Association, I extend a warm welcome to everyone gathered here today for the unveiling of our commemorative sign. We are deeply happy and delighted to have County Mayor Frank Flynn and our local councillors with us. Your presence underscores the significance of this occasion and recognises the sacrifices made by the people of Clondulane and the surrounding areas during the War of Independence. A heartfelt thank you goes to Cork County Council and the Commemoration Committee for their crucial financial support. This project would not have been possible without their commitment to preserving our local history. We also extend our gratitude to Neil O'Donovan, who will be given a fascinating presentation of this era later in the school. Finally, I want to acknowledge Mark Fanning for his tireless efforts in initiating and researching this project, ensuring that the stories of courage and resilience from this period are remembered. So I'll now hand you over to Mark, who will welcome Frank Flynn and our other guests to officially unveil the sign and share some words on behalf of the Cork County Council. Very much good.
I'd just like to call on our County Mayor, Frank Flynn.
Walter O'Connor. First of all, I want to thank you most sincerely for a very, very kind invitation. And I want to say a special thank you to Bernie English, who's chairperson of the Clondulane Community Association, Commemoration Board, for doing the opening remarks here this evening. And I want to thank you most sincerely. As a Clondulane resident for a number of years, as a student who went to school here in Clondulane, very, very proud of it, and as your Lord Mayor locally. I'm the first Lord Mayor to stand in this area of North Cork for 44 years. I'm a very, very proud Clondulane man. I remember my good days going to school, and I wrote an article for Deco and Morris Gubbins is here, my days to Clondulane School through the fields, and it still stands the test of time. But my biggest memories of all, I suppose, was the local league below here. Just me massive crowds there, unbelievable. We enjoyed it down there in the green field, teams from all over, and I remember especially the team Noel Burns, when we won it. He was the captain, and I scored the goal in the final. And we had tremendous success. And I tell you one thing, there was 4 teams got to the final, and it was the most enjoyable occasion. I believe the crowds at those were absolutely unbelievable. So my days in Clondulane, I'm absolutely delighted, very much enjoyed them, and they've always a special place in my heart. During the week, I actually was invited by the principal here to visit your school. Absolutely magnificent school. A great principal, great teachers, James O'Sullivan. And I can tell you can be proud of the school that's down there. I spent about the best part of 2 hours and see what they're going through there. And an entrepreneur, class especially, different sections, community, what they're doing down there is absolutely unbelievable. So we can be very, very proud of Clondulane. As your county mayor, I'm delighted to be here this evening in Clondulane to officially unveil this commemorative board, honouring local heroes in the War of Independence, titled Clondulane, a Revolutionary Past. I would firstly like to thank the Clondulane Community Association for inviting me here as your Lord Mayor this evening, and many of the locals who are the driving forces behind this. Primary Mark Fanning, ably assisted by Pat Morrison and Podge Flynn. He did an absolutely outstanding job. Congratulations. And of course, in order to get all these things right, because often you get things right, you get no credit, but if you leave out one name or 2 names, you get criticised. And often when the mayors give these speeches, I find it very hard. So I welcome all the politicians up here and wait and see some of them. So, Mark, along with Neil Donovan, who's a great friend of mine, son of the great Con Donovan, who served for many, many years as chairman of the General Liam Lynch National Commemoration. And I had the honour of serving with secretary and as treasurer. And then Con asked me to take over that great organisation, which I did and led on your behalf for 21 long years. Con's son Neil is some mine of information. Anything that happened in that period, the way he studies it, Neil could ring you at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. The amount of work and time and effort that you put in. The other morning he rang me at 5 minutes past 7. He's very, very committed. And I have no doubt that Mark, along with Neil, did the research that was very much needed and very much involved in this magnificent project. As Mayor, on behalf of Cork County Council, it's all about funding. Everything costs money. And Mark came to me and he said to me, Frank, and Pat came to me, you think we can get the money? I said, you put the project in place and I'll deliver the funding. And I'm delighted that Cork County Council, on my suggestion and proposal, provided the necessary funding to ensure that this project will go ahead with little or no cost to the local community. I'm delighted your local council have succeeded in getting that funding for you, as this is something that's going to stand there for many, many years to come. Many, many generations. The Clondulane revolutionary past. People will come here, people will visit it, and people will go away with many memories and many dreams. It will serve as a lasting tribute to the courage and sacrifice of the great Clondulane men and women who fought for Irish freedom. As you can see from the board, when we have it unveiled, the Clondulane Irish Volunteers, branch formed in early 1914 at the organisation's interpretation. Captain Charles Quaid led the volunteers in drilling locally and route marches in the Fermoy area. When the split came, the National Volunteers continued locally, but the most influential Clondulane members sided with the more militant element, which came to prominence in 1916 with the Easter Rising, and locally with the famous Kents of Banard. When reorganised in 1917, the Clondulane Company ranked of the IRA and Commemoration resulted in over 100 men and women volunteering for active service in the fight for Irish freedom. Clondulane volunteers, as they are known, are involved in many of the key activities in the Fermoy Battalion and the Cork No. 2 Brigade. Several of the volunteers from Fermoy, and especially here the volunteers from Clondulane, rose to prominence with officers' roles in company, battalion, brigade, divisional and national roles. These being especially Moss Toomey, Michael Fitzgerald, Lark Condon and Johnny Fenny. Both of us. They are noted on the board along with the list of men and women listed by townland and street on where they resided locally during the War of Independence. These are no doubt great Clondulane people to whom we owe a great deal of gratitude and a great deal amongst our freedom and much, much more. This evening we'll also pay special respects to Mick Fitzgerald, Clondulane resident who tragically died on hunger strike in 1920. And later in the school, historian Neil Donovan will elaborate on the history of all the people I mentioned here, and also will include the Blackwater crossing, the Wesleyan raid in Fermoy, railway disruptions, and the daring kidnapping of General Lucas. As County Mayor, thank you. And again, may this board here in Clondulane serve as a fitting tribute to the courage and sacrifice of Clondulane men and women who fought for Irish freedom. Really mahag give believe.
English there again, Johnny.
No, I'm gone. I got to help up and do it.
I'll do it. How many? I won't let you do it.
So look, we'll just... Right, we'll do the unveiling, and as Frank said there, we'll list the people there. We'll be aside just to get off and unveil the board. So first call on Jimmy Fanning, just to go. We call on Sister Christine there, relation of Big Fitzgerald. I'd like to call on Michael Fanning again to. I'd like to call on Morris Gubbins. And finally, I'd like to final two, Mark Fanning and also County Mayor Frank O'Flynn. So we have a fine crowd, which reflects it. And again, I just call you to pull down the banner.
Could we say, just before we take it down, could we just say, eternal rest grant to all these people, O Lord, and may perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. Amen.
Amen. So we'll just take a few pictures. While they're taking pictures, I'll maybe give you a brief explanation of the board. So the board is information board really of the volunteers. It has segments on different people, but the most important part, it lists all the 103 men and women at the bottom by townland. And again, it's, I suppose, if there's any errors in there, point them out. But please feel free during the week. Now, we'll be going after this, heading up to the school to give a talk on these people. So, with the band, will bring us up there. And I suppose we want to come up there just to kick-start the rest of the evening.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started. Well, huge crowd. Didn't think there'd be that many turn out. I'd just like to give special thanks to all the people that have travelled long distances. I have cousins down from County Meath. Fair play to them. And I think the Gubbins family travelled up from Limerick. So fair play. So I just to take notice of emergency exits. There's one here behind this curtain here, and there's one at the back of the hall. And I'd just like all of you to turn off your mobile phones. I suppose I'll do the same myself. Just take a minute for that. Okay, folks, we'll get going. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Fanning. I'm the son of Michael and Mary Fanning. To be fair to say, I suppose I come from a good, strong Republican background with Fannings on one side and the Toomeys on the other. It had to be that way, I'd say. I spent a lot of time when I was younger with my grandparents' house in Clondulane, and down there I heard a lot of stories, and I always had an ear cocked. And we'd go for a spin on a Sunday, and off around the country, and of course I'd be told that's where that happened. That fella lived there, this fella lived there. So I took it all in, I suppose. And I had a first class history lesson, really. Another thing I noticed from my dad's family, they had such immense respect for the people of the war and independence. And you couldn't explain it really. Like, it was just, anytime they passed the Mick Fitzgerald's monument in the courthouse, the hat was taken off the top of the head. Just huge respect for these people. Here tonight, I'm very proud to stand here in front of my parents. I've Dad, my father Michael, he's 90 years of age, on the 5th of May last. Jimmy, his first cousin, he was 94 last April. And just so proud to see the two of you here tonight. The last line of the Fannings, that generation of Fannings, so they're the only two left. And the other thing, I'd just like to remember a couple of people in the village that just passed away recently. Steve O'Mahony, I'm sure he'd be here tonight, but God be good to him. Jimmy's brother Dennis died last November. Actually, the two of them passed away last November. And just, and also Moira Toomey would be Mas Toomey's daughter, who's in a bit of bad health at the minute, and she's living in London, some part of England, Devon, I think. So just to remember them tonight as well. This idea started, I suppose, for me a long time ago. I always felt that the men and women of Clondulane, they never got the recognition they deserved. And it was always in the back of my mind. And even when they were building the manor, if someone could tell me how long ago that was, I'm thinking maybe 15 or 16 years ago. I approached a site manager, a project manager, a foreman, and I asked them, I thought it'd be a good idea if they named a couple of the houses in the area after these people, these men and women in Clondulane. Everyone thought it was a great idea, but it never materialised, it never took off. And we're here today now, I suppose, as a result of all that. Commemoration, I think, is so important for a community. It's the only thing a community it's the greatest honour that a community can bestow on the people of the past. It's all we can do is remember the people of the past, and for the great deeds that they did and succeeded in doing against all odds, against the might of an empire, and yet they managed to do it. But it's so important for us in this room tonight to know about it. And even the next generation coming up, the children in the school, it's so important to know the history of what happened. We must also remember it didn't roll out like a red carpet. There was a lot of sacrifices made, a lot of struggling involved in it, and a lot of people paid the ultimate sacrifice with the price of their own life, really, throughout it all. But at least we have a little place in the village now that we can commemorate. We can lay a reed maybe once a year, and we can maybe go for a walk and just pause for a minute and just reflect and thank those men and women of that era. And I'd just like you to think about this statement I'm going to say. To not commemorate, it's a betrayal to the people of the past. It is a betrayal not to commemorate them. They have to be commemorated. Just nearly finished now. I have just a couple of interesting points. The 24th of May marks the 101st year of the end of the Civil War today. And it would have been great to have this maybe on the centenary of the 100 years, maybe last year, but look, there's a lot of work involved in it, and as myself and Neil, we're 5 months at this. We're going on 5 months now, I think, Neil, and there's a lot of work involved in it. And another interesting point, we're just literally meters away from where Mas Toomey was born, and some of his relations are here tonight, so just literally across the road. Oh yes, yeah, I didn't bring up the bike. I was to bring the bike. Yeah. Now the next, I just want to introduce to Neil Donovan. Neil is a native of Ballyporeen, proud Tipperary man. His father was Con Donovan. I'm sure you heard Frank talk about him there tonight. He was the chair of the Liam Lynch National Committee for over 27 years. And I'm sure Neil also, has connections in Ireland. His grandparents, Jack Donovan and Mary Leddy, and his granduncle, Con Leddy, who was the Fermoy Battalion OC here at the time. And he was well acquainted with all the people that are on that list in the sign there tonight. And I think this week Neil will be nailing his flag to the Cork side of his family after what happened above in Thurles last Sunday. Anyway, I know one thing though, that Neil's heart is buried in Ireland. I know he's very fond connections to Ireland from his grandparents, and words can't express, Neil, what you've done for this community. I mean, you've spent hours and hours on your computer. He's been above in the National Archives in Dublin. He can turn around and say to me, I must go to Dublin tomorrow to the National Archives. I only go to Dublin to the airport once, maybe every year, but he's up and down the road. But no, a huge word of thanks, Neil, from the committee and from all the people here in the village. It just wouldn't happen without you. So big boola bass for Neil Donovan.
Thanks, Mark. I suppose I'll only address one comment in that, really, and that's the Tipperary and the Cork comment. I see a certain Mick Maguire here, who was Tipperary County Chairman Board, I think back when we broke our famine, if I remember rightly. And geez, we thought that was a famine. I don't know what you call what you have at the moment, how many years it is, but anyway, we'll leave it at that. You won one match, listen, fine. The famine continues. Anyway, thanks very much, Mark. And again, thanks very much to the Clondulane Community Association for inviting me, and the school, James O'Sullivan, for hosting this. So I'll get going because this is very pictorial. There's a lot of information. If you take it all in, fair juice, yeah. But Tommy here is recording it with Seamus Hennessy, and this will be up on YouTube in about 2 weeks' time. So it'll give you time, it will take a bit of time to look at it. There's a lot of detail here, a lot of photos, but I will go through it, I'll talk through the photos. So it is very visual. We might dim the lights there actually, the last few lights, maybe if we can at all, just to so you can get a good view. So don't worry about looking at me, look at the screen. And again, as Mark said, with grandparents like Jack Donovan and Mary Leddy from Ireland, I couldn't be but involved. Got all this from my father as well. And again, very proud, and they'd been well acquainted with Clondulane. I've always heard Clondulane through going to Kilcrumper, and we'll see some of that more here. So I will start, and again, it'll just be, as I said, don't worry about not picking it all up. So Clondulane. So I suppose, just a brief thing, a company, what's a battalion, what's a brigade, what's a division? And that's gone too fast there now. So Clondulane really, company is for my really. Clondulane only came into itself, really because of the numbers here, 103. And it was really for my Clondulane, really, all the one. But then they separated before the truce. Here you can see, and I'll use the pointer here, I'll get the laser going on this here. So I'm pointing to Clondulane here on the right-hand side. So that's the company. The brigade is for an area. And we'll see how this develops as it goes on. A battalion then is the first battalion for with all the companies. And then the brigade is all this area, the whole area, this is all the brigade area. With all the blue, the yellows, all battalions. And that was the Cork number 2 brigade. And we'll see how this comes into existence as we go through it. But that's just to give you an idea. So as you can see here, Clondulane is on the extreme east of it. It's certainly not obscure. It's very much involved. So the volunteers, Irish volunteers, this 1913-14, why did they start? They started mainly as a reaction to the volunteers in the north of Ireland at the time. Home rule this is very political, no thoughts of revolution or anything. There was, but what looked like was Redmond was making inroads in the north. Were afraid of it, so they started the volunteers to counteract the possibility of home rule in Ireland, and this was started by Owen MacNeill there in 1913 November. What you generally find out in this area is that it doesn't be too far behind, I'll be honest. So in March 1914, Clondulane again quickly followed suit. So the volunteers, and these are all the actions that they were in 1914 they were involved. We'll go through these with various slides. But again, it's just to show how very active they were here, really. So again, here we see the start of it here on the left-hand side in March 1914. The From Irish Volunteers formed with 200, followed by Clondulane Company, Irish Volunteer Branch. So very, very early in the days, they're actually organising here. It's still very political. They have no arms, no nothing. So the Home Rule Bill, and they're rejoicing for Mike, because everyone was supporting Redmond, the Irish Parliamentary Party, at this time. And again, they're marching to the square in Fermoy, 400 volunteers with a body of volunteers from Clondulane. So again, they're in the middle of it. Not just that, they took part in tug of war. Clondulane here, you can see, with the Fermoy volunteers. So it was very, everything and anything, really. And out here on the right, extreme right, in July 1914, Castlelyons establishes. Now, the photo is not great, but these are all volunteers along here, a line. And Clondulane were joined from Clondulane under the command of Captain Quaid, companies C and D. So he had 2 companies, which is quite a lot of people. Again, just to give you an idea, this is Ballypreen, my home village, in 1914, and this becomes quite a famous picture. You'll see why now in a minute. This is exactly what the volunteers were doing. These marched out from Mitchelstown. These are the Galtee battalion, all the Galtee, the whole along. And that more or less extended over to Fermoy as well. That's a mall march here in 1914. We'll take it on. And why is this photo quite famous? One of the main reasons is that this person here is Liam Lynch. He's just a volunteer. He's no rank, as his card here, Irish National Volunteers, Liam Lynch, Baldwin Street, Mitchelstown. He was working in Mitchelstown at the time. He's just a volunteer, the same as all the rest of them, no rank. And the reason I'm showing these photos just to give you an explanation. This is the main street in Ballybreen. There's my home place there. So this is the fellow here in the front is the company captain. This is Captain Quaid in your, I suppose, from Clondulane. Behind him is the section commanders. And this would have been probably the Fannings and other people. And maybe Lark Condon, whatever. And behind them are the volunteers here. So probably about 100. But the one thing you notice about this, there's no arms, nothing. They're just marching. And they were drilled in marching. They marched up and down the street here for a few hours. Just for your interest, this is Ronald Reagan pub as it happens, before the Black and Tans burned it, a couple of years later. So again in Mitchelstown, and again this is a grand view of Munster. So it's getting very political. They're organising. Roger Casement is going to come down and review him with Robert Merritt. That's to inspect him. As it happens in this case, Robert couldn't come. Here's the telegram, and Robert Merritt came. So who was there? As you can see in the very top right, from my Clondulane, there was 250 marched, and they would have simply marched out to Mitchelstown from Clondulane and Fermoy. There was no getting cars, maybe cycles, some of them, but they marched out. And that's what you see here. So each line is a company all along, and they went and inspected them. And here there's Colonel Moore, as it happens, did the inspection, and it's still the National Volunteers. So you can see from all around different areas of Ireland, but quite a number from Clondulane. And that was generally the Galtee battalion, really, that was considered, all the way to Limerick, Tipperary, Cork. Here again, in top of Mitchelstown, you'll recognise it hasn't changed too much. And again, you can see them marching here. Now, again, no arms. They have arms belts, but they have no rifles or anything like that. That was the intent, was to get arms. So they had the Defence of Ireland Fund. And you can see here on the bottom, the Irish Volunteers. And likewise, the Coming on now commence as well. And they collect £120 in Fermoy and Clondulane volunteers. So the volunteers are involved in everything. And the whole idea was, this money was to purchase arms and ammunition and give it back to who had the most involvement. That was the whole intent, import arms. Because that's exactly what they were doing in the north. In Fermoy itself, we have a parade in the 3rd of August 1914. So this is happening throughout the country, not just around here. But again, you can see here, all the right inside the battalion, all the ones in Clondulane are there again. Now the picture on the bottom right, that's actually Hurleys they're holding, not rifles at this stage. But they start at 4:30 below in the quay. They drill for 2 hours. Chief Inspector Donovan inspects them. The bands, the fife and drum bands. There's 700 below in Fermoy marching. And again, this is very peaceful. It generally had the support of the public. All changed in September 1914. John Redmond, this is given his famous wooden bridge speech up in Wicklow. And John was, I suppose, the main political person at the time, and he felt that if the Irish joined with the British Army and fought in World War I and fought side by side with the Northern Volunteers and Republican Volunteers, that they'd get along, and when they come back, it would strengthen the Home Rule. That was his belief. And he had quite a lot of support, but what did that manifest itself? It split the Volunteers in 1914. Now, when you look at this, he had Irish National Volunteers, 175,000, and approximately 13,500 with the Irish Volunteers. What most people think, Liam Lynch included, went for the political side. The vast majority supported Irish National Volunteers in Redmond. They believed that the political would take hold. So in Clondulane, the branch still continued. But then, as we mentioned above, the Kents of Bernard had different ideas. Their revolution wasn't through they were probably sick of the political side, and that had a strong influence here, amongst some of the Clondulane volunteers. And again, now we're into 1915, and again, these are all the actions. I won't leave them there too long, because we'll be going through them. So the volunteers continue on, and in the bottom left here, this is Charles McQuaid. He works above in the mill, as do most people in the volunteers in Clondulane, are associated with to some degree. And they're having rifle competitions, exactly like the picture on the bottom in Fermoy, 48 competitors. Charles Quaid, Clondulane, gets 34 points, Private Lyons, Clondulane, 33, Private Michael Lyons, 38, and Private John Fanning, 37. So they're still involved in this side of it, National Volunteers in February. In April, they have a massive meeting in the 27,000 in the Phoenix Park, and this is Redmond in the bottom right taking the salute and marching. So that's where generally it lies. Again, more competitions. And again, we see the familiar names will become, starting from the bottom there, we'll see Egan, Toomey, Maloney, Fanning, Egan, Lyons, Seawood, Hayes, Hanlon and Quaid. Some of them remain right till the end. Again, very similar. The funeral of volunteers and the Clondulane of John O'Mahony and Cork Hill. The Clondulanes are very prominent. And again, on the right-hand side, they're collecting money again. And just to inform they were still collecting money for in the First World War, the troops, at the same time, £90. So, there was two different worlds going on, I suppose. In the lead up to 1916, obviously there's very much a connection in Fermoy with Thomas MacDonagh, who taught in St. Coleman's College in Fermoy from 1904 to 1906, and was very much involved with the Gaelic League and all that here. Again, everything changed in 1916, really, with the Kents of Bernard. And you can see Mary here, led by Mary in some respects, with the famous house here, the shooting, Thomas, David, Willem and Richard. And I won't go through this too much, because this is fairly well documented, in fairness. But again, that changed everything. And as William Butler said, it all changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. This influenced, in effect, Liam Lynch witnessed this. Quite a lot of people in Fermoy witnessed this. The Kents marching over the Kent Bridge now, Fermoy Bridge, with the mother and the horse cart behind, and the son as well. In effect, from this day on, they became very militant. They were done with politics. They had followed the political route, but 1916 and the aftermath, that was the end of it. And Clondulane, very much so, then went on the revolutionary side. And again, not to forget, in Fermoy, Sean O'Brien was very influential, and he would have been out here. He was arrested in Fermoy as well, interned in Frognock. But Sean, they would have known him, he'd have been all the ways up along, involved in everything, and that's his interment order. And again, David Kent, you can see here, in David Kent, he received 5 years imprisonment, and he was interned in Dartmoor and Lewis Prison in England, and he was released in June 1917. So they were very much involved. Just as a aside, really, in some respects, Clondulane Camogie came across this, July 1916. Remarkable, really. 1,000 watching Ballyduff Upper, just in Waterford, your neighbours, beat Clan in the Camogie match at Ballyduff, followed by tea in Ballyduff Library. The main reason I'm putting up here is that of the 103, I only have 8 female Coming Man members. There's no question there's more. I believe the ones in green here are volunteers, there's more here. And that's one of the things I'd like to get out of this evening. But I've no doubt in the mall that some of these are volunteers or Coming Amon members. We're now up to 1917, and again the actions now it's very different. So 1916 has happened, politics has taken a backward step, and it's now becoming. So what's happening in Clondulane? Mick Fischel comes to Clondulane to work in the flour mill, and he lodges with James and Ellen Casey there. And again, you can see the mill, quite a massive mill, really, flour mill, superimposed on the map in the bottom right. Quite quickly, Mick Fischel joins the trade union there, actually. Atty Hallinan was the chairman, and Mick becomes the secretary. But there's probably about 30 locals, the majority are volunteers working there. Again, quite quickly, we have Lark Condon being arrested in 1917, and primarily for drilling, actually, as it happens. You see in the bottom, in the middle here, we get this pointer going. The ringleaders, this is 1970, so very, very early. Willem Dinn, Lark Condon, Michael Fischel and they're drilling, and they're saying they're the key ringleaders. Lara is arrested in October 1917. He's actually released on the hunger strike. They went on a hunger strike. And you read here at the bottom here, released after commencing hunger strike on the Cat and Mouse Act. The Cat and Mouse Act was let him go and we'll catch him again. And then we'll court-martial him. So that became quite regular. And again, just following on from that, you see more here with the arrows, the yellow arrows, Lark Condon, Curra, and Michael Fischel, Clondulane again. And they're, named here. So RSC report 1970, the most prominent volunteers legally drilling in defiance of the authorities, Clondulane, Lark Condon and Mick Fischel. Now, the volunteers is more or less disbanded, and they've organised as the IRA, really. And this is the FMI throughout the country, reorganising. In the early 1917, Officer Commanding Liam Dinn from Kilkenny, First Lieutenant Liam Lynch, First Lieutenant. The ones highlighted in black are the Clondulane personnel, George Power, Mick Fischel, all familiar names. By late 1917, Liam Lynch is Officer Commanding, Mick Fischel is First Lieutenant, and John Fanning. And this is a common feature. Liam Dinn was arrested and wasn't. So once you're arrested, your role is taken. And people move up the line, and you'll see that, especially with John Fanning, as we go on. So continuing on, 1917, Eamon de Valera visits actually the Kents to commemorate the first anniversary of the Kents of Barnard, and for quite a big crowd: David Kent, William Kent, Pete Cleary, J.J. Walsh, TD from Cork, and Richard Barry, and they all meet Eamon de Valera. The significance of this was that this is the last time that the volunteers here wear the uniform. They believe now, while they had no problem getting arrested up to now with the drilling, they wanted to, actually, in some respects, wanted to get arrested to highlight the fact. But now they believe they're more valuable not being arrested. And Liam Lynch, Mick Fischel, they don't wear the uniform after this day on service. So again, we're continuing on now to the 1970s. So now, basically, they've reorganised in 1917. This continues on 1918. Again, Lark Condon and Curry here, still drilling. Lynch and Condon drilled for over 3/4 of an hour, included extended drill at Straw Hall on January the 13th, just up the road here. So again, that was still no arms at this stage. The battalion is now formed in 1918, so it's taken Clondulane, Fermoy, Ardle, and all these 8 or 9 areas, and they've organised, and Martin O'Keefe is Officer Commanding. Again, the Clondulane personnel are straight in there, Lark Condon, the Vice Officer Commander, and Mick Fischel is Quartermaster. The company then, as I was saying earlier, you can see Johnny Fanning going from Second Lieutenant right up to Officer Commanding, which he held for a long time. And that was common throughout, so if you moved from the company to the battalion, you rose up to ranks. Getting a bit more serious, they raid arms in Barry's Hardware. I'm sure you've all passed this, even quite a lot of you coming tonight. This is where Barry's shop was up on the street near the bridge, where Merrick's pub is now, his pharmacy. But the yard was here, and they had a magazine there. So they raided, obviously, with some of the locals. They got a serious amount of detonators, jelly knife, and shotgun cartridges. And Johnny Fanning and Mick Fischel secured the rifles, ammunition, and equipment also from soldiers. So bit by bit, they're getting it. They raid arms, 7 or 8 rifles are collected. They go around to all the farmers locally and ask them for their rifles or shotguns. Some give, some maybe not so keen to give it. And they got over 100 in the Fermoy battalion area. Again, a friendly girl possibly coming them on, walking right hotel, takes 2 automatic revolvers from the British Army coats while they're in the hotel. And again, they were fairly ingenious. 7 or 8 evolves was principally bought from British soldiers on leave. So they used every means to get arms. Where did they hide them? Where did they bring them? To Clondulane. So, and again, this is just probably a typical, they actually made ammunition as well here in James and Katie Fanning's cottage here. And they made ammunition and grenades, and they assembled there. And likewise in the ditches here, just so you'd be amazed, they hid them in the ditches. They didn't ever hit them really generally in the house so much, in the ditches on the way down. That was quite common. Concealed in stone ditches or corners of fields. And Mark was telling me on one occasion, Katie Fanning, she wasn't too impressed in that they had gathered gunpowder to make grenades, and the hens ate it, and that was the end of the hens. So the hens weren't that revolutionary out there. Again, getting serious, and this is the first real action of the battalion, the Castletown Roach trade raid. And you can see here Liam Tobin comes down from headquarters with Liam Lynch. They hire 2 cars here from Magnus. Marietta are going for a funeral, one driven by Tom Kavanagh from They go out to Castletown Roach, Rennie Boreen, the rail is well gone, but I suppose the road is still there. And a lot of people from here, Johnny Fanning is there, Larry Condon, Powder Maloney, Ted Heskin, Mick Fitzgerald, all from Clondulane, and there was about 50 involved from all over really. It didn't work out that they had the wrong information. The arms weren't on the train, and the wires were cut at the wrong time. The wires were cut as the train came in as going out. So, but it wasn't a success, and but they were Liam Lynch and Mick Fitzgerald were heightened by it because it showed that they could do it, that they were able to organise, and they took great heart from it. And again, just to show you their organisation, they had dumps ready in Ireland, in the Tipperary side of Ireland for this. They were fairly well organised. 1918, the conscription crisis, and Tomás McCurtain, I'm not saying it's the first time he comes to Fermoy, it's the first time he comes in some respects to meet Liam Lynch and the volunteers here about anti-conscription. Because like throughout the rest of the country, the volunteers of 100 all of a sudden went to 300, nearly 400 to avoid conscription. And at first they were welcomed in, but when the conscription was over, it went back down to 100. And throughout the country, and especially around here, they were very, very selective who they left into the volunteers, because they just joined for the sake of trying to avoid conscription. But the conscription did fall away. Here, we can see the politics changing. The first was down in Waterford by-election. This is Willie Redmond, and John Redmond, he had passed away, and Willie was elected, and David White. But all from around this area, they went down to support the Sinn Féin candidate, Vincent White. And the pig buyers down there were were quite a lot of violence with the pig buyers. They were, very pro, because they had a great business, and they saw the change of order disrupting this. And Larry Condon and a few around here got into a situation, but Larry pulled out the rifle and a few shots in the air finished it. So this is all well documented. But so that was a by-election in March, but in December then there was a full election. And you can see from the green here, this is the Sinn Féin sweeping the country with 73 of 105. You can see the bit of yellow here, that's Redmond seat in Waterford. But the rest of the country, so now it's gone from the Parliamentary Party to Sinn Féin. So the Home Rule is truly over. Thomas Hunter's elected Castletown Roach Landworth. David Kenton from Bernard House in Cork East. He wasn't opposed, actually. In some respects, he was no election. So now they're starting to get arms, they're starting to get action. So we move on to 19. And again, as you can see, it's getting quite a lot. So again, now the brigade is organised, as we went back to that slide initially. And Liam Lynch has all of this area here with 3,500 volunteers that he's looking after. Tomás McCurtain is appointed number 1. Michael Collins presides at that, actually. And just incidentally, that was the last time Michael Collins was in Munster during the War of Independence. The day after, Tomás McCurtain presided and Liam Lynch was appointed. And again, talk number 3, Tom Hayes, all well known. So this, again, so now the brigade is organised. So the company, likewise, Liam Lynch moves up. Mick Fitzgerald moves up from my battalion, Lark Condon, Moss Toomey, they all move up the ranks. And again, Johnny Fanning is now the main officer commanding in for my company. So again, as you can see, the main ranks are full of Clondulane personnel. Another day that the War of Independence in effect starts in 1919. Dáil Éireann meet for the first time, and Solihead Beg, Dan Breen is a bit obscure there, but I'm sure you all know Dan. Seamus Robinson and Sean Hogan in Solihead Beg. And just incidentally, I see Mick and two of the 30 Brigade members here tonight, and Neil Ryan and Mick McGuire, and they're very active in that, involved in that every year. It's good to see him here. They're not finished here in Clondulane or Fermoy. This is the old railway here. Very much different now. A few bits. The coal shed, I think, is still there in a few bits. But in this Clondulane Fermoy station here, and Tom Egan and Jeremiah Cockery were railway employed. They were shunters. They used shunt the wagons. But one night they shunted a wagon full of 303 ammunition down the line. Along comes Johnny Fanning and Paddy Ahern and opened the wagon door, and followed shortly by Mick Fitzgerald and Clondulane volunteers. And all this ammunition was brought out to Clondulane. In effect, this is quite significant because this supplied all North Cork with 303 ammunition for the whole duration of the War of Independence. But again, this is all brought to Clondulane. We'll come back to that in a minute, but again, Ireland Barracks is raided, just the first RIC barracks raided in the whole country in April 19. They were to raid it on the 13th of April 19, the Sunday. George Power and Liam Lynch went out, met Conlady and the Ireland lads, organised it. Mick Fitzgerald and Johnny Fanning travelled on the 13th, but the raid is postponed. They never noted why, but my belief is that there was all, you can see the building here, this is RIC barracks. There was 4 there, and that changed to 6, I think, and they were very cautious. But again, so the following Sunday, so Sunday the 20th of April, Mick Fitzgerald goes out. Again, crosses the Blackwater, the usual route there at Clondulane. Conlady, the OC, with locals Sean O'Mahony, Tom Brunnock, Morris Hyland, Owen McCarthy, and John Donovan there on the bottom right is my grandfather. And they captured 6 rifles, Lee Enfield rifles, some hand grenades, a Webley revolver, and what you see on the right hand side is the actual key to barracks, still in the family, and the whistle from the with John Joseph Donovan there. He still has those. Again, it's all about getting arms. They didn't hurt any. There was no one hurt in this thing. They waited. There was 6 there, 5 went to mass, and they went in and stuck the arms quite easily. A great success. It got great across the press. So where were they hiding the arms in Clondulane? And again, the top left, this is actually Ardon, actually, the military. After Ardon was raided, they came and raided Clondulane. So bear in mind, the RIC was still operating quite well. They had good information. They knew who was involved and who wasn't. And they raided at Clondulane fairly quickly for early May, late April of that year. But the arms in Clondulane, the bottom left here, you can see the store. There was a false bottom under the platform here, and that's where they concealed the arms. In the mill itself, then here on the right-hand side, there was a big 50-foot bin for wheat, and there was a false floor on it, and a big ladder going down. And it was not unusual for these to be empty or full, so they used to go down into the false floor, and Mick Fitzgerald constructed that along with the Clondulane volunteers. And that, again, they were never found, really. Knocklong, what's the connection with Knocklong and Clondulane? Knocklong is basically when Sean Hogan is captured and Dan Breen, Sean Tracy and all the Tipperary companies decide to not having that, basically. Well documented again, but at the train station in Knocklong, Ned Bryan here from Galway and Jim Scanlon were injured. And again, it probably shows you a couple of things. One, they were able to get him out through Anglesborough, and I see Christy Callan here, they stayed in his house. He's Liam Lynch's house, I suppose, really, in Anglesborough there for a few nights, and they moved him on to Anglesborough to Mitchelstown, and they actually ended up moving out Belpre into their relations, as it happens. But it's remarkable that the RIC had such good information. They knew their relations. They started from not long out raiding the relations. What's even more remarkable is that they got information to Liam Lynch without WhatsApp, without mobile phones, that this was about to happen. Liam Lynch got Tom Kavanagh here from Fermoy car out to the mountain just outside Kilworth there, between Ballyporeen, got the house, got him into the car, drove. They had to pass through some barracks. They passed through Moore Park, the gate, and the sentry ordered them to stop, and Liam Lynch said to make Tom Kavanagh drive on. They fired them. Bear in mind, Ned O'Brien and Jim Scanlon in the car, and none of them injured. So they got out towards Clondulane here, and this is the connection, really. They got to Ballydog, or just before there, blew the whistle, and out popped Mick Fitzgerald and Narcondon. And they went to Maloney's in Ballydorgan, then to Corbeha, and their final destination was Dr. Con Molan in Connacht, where they recovered. And Mick Fitzgerald was the one that brought in papers, food out every day, whatever, cycled out. The 2 lads ended up going to America eventually. They got them out of the country, never captured. So again, that's the connection with Clondulane. Mick Fischelt, the first time is arrested in June 1919. This is where he stayed. This is the house here, just up at the Clondulane Lodge. He's arrested again, and he's brought at the early July, brought up to Cork jail. Amongst them, who was Morris Crowe and Tipperary, actually, the prison strike leaders. Bottom left here is the court-martial documents. They found some ammunition in the house. They found some documents. They couldn't tie the ammunition to him. There was another person there, and he never showed up. So what they did, long story short, they released him and arrested him immediately again outside. And it's, when you now read back on the documents here, this is the British court-martial document. He's saying there's not enough evidence to arrest him, but obviously they didn't charge him, and he was imprisoned. They broke up the cells. He got 3 months hard labour, but he was in solitary confinement for 24 hours a day. Bar Sunday, he was let out. And this is Morris Crowe here, famous picture on the hunger strike. But he was released in 19... Again, hunger strikes, they didn't know what to do at the time. They released him in August 1919. But things are picking up in Clondulane and Fermoy. They're planning the Wesleyan raid. So the 5 Battalion in Cork number 2. So bear in mind, since 1916, there was no British officer shot or injured. And again, another first raid in the barracks. So they go and raid Wesleyan raid not long after Mick Fischelt is released. Notice, I suppose, Mick Fischelt, Moss Toomey, Johnny Fanning, Lark Condon, Mick Fischelt are going to all the, up in Straw Hall actually where they used to meet to organise it. And Mick Fischelt is advised not to take part, but there was no stopping him because he was quite strong from the hunger strike, quite weak I should say, from the hunger strike. But nonetheless, these are the people involved, and this is their rank at the time. Mick Fischelt, Lark Condon, Moss Toomey, Johnny Fanning, Atty Hallinan, that's Peter Hallinan, Tom Swain, Ted Heskin, Tom Leahy, Bat Coughlin, John Egan, James Fanning, Ned Lane and William Lane. Now they all had different roles. Some were very prominent in it, some had scouting roles, but we'll just go through it again quickly. So you probably know where Wesleyan here, the barracks, the old and new barracks, they marched out over the bridge into the church on a Sunday. And at the time they believed that they were armed because they were marching with rifles, because a couple of Sundays before that in Ardmore one went off inside in the church. And as it happens, they weren't armed. There was no ammunition in them, but they didn't know that. So as you can see, all the volunteers here, 14 from Clondulane and all of them from Ireland, all along, they all organised. They met generally outside of the hospital with the cars. 3 cars came, and we'll see what happened to them now in a minute. So again, this is just outside the courthouse here. You can see the spot. This is the spot where Private Jones was mortally wounded in the ambush. So the ambush, basically, the cars, as I said, came from the hospital. There was 3 cars came, one from Mallow, one from Rathcormac, the third one came from Dungarvan. But when the driver found out what they were at, he turned around, headed back to Dungarvan, and left the 2, Mick Mansfield here from Dungarvan, the 2 of them. But they just used the 2 cars in. They drove up, parked beside it. All the Arden lads, Clondulane lads walked up and down the main charging party, and they attacked them. And again, they were no intent they were armed with revolvers, but they wanted to revive. Between 15 and 17 revolvers were captured, or rifles, I should say, were captured. It only lasted a couple of minutes, but there was some shots. As I said, one of the Shropshire soldiers was killed, Private Jones. But again, they organised, they all jumped in the cars, whatever, with the shock and the horror, and sped it off. Just here, they had 2 trees sawn through, just as you go around the bend, heading out here. And when the 2 cars are gone, the trees were felled. So the army were, at this stage, were getting ready, they had the alarm, were coming. Off they sped out through the road, I'm sure you all know it. Now, you can't quite see it here too well, but just here at Kilberry Wood, this is where the lanes come in, and a few of them that were waiting. They offload the rifles into Kilberry Wood in an prepared arms room for the night, left them there. But again, just how smart in some respects they were. They planned it very well. The evening after, the rifles were transferred across the river to Lough, probably, into Ireland. And where in Ireland? Into County Tipperary. Because the British and RSC troops that time, you stop it. Well, I suppose the pub there now, that's the county bounds. And so the safe houses were on the other side. Even though it's Cork number 2 as it happens, but it's in Tipperary. So again, just very quickly to go through, they've sped on. The cars, the Rathcormac car went out to Cappoquin, went up they attended Mass in Mount Millery. The other car kept going down to Youghal, and they dropped off Liam Lynch. Liam Lynch was wounded, as happens, and they dressed him back here just outside Clondulane. He didn't know it, but they had William Ahern. He'd addressed him here. More than likely, Lynch was shot with a revolver, one of his own, actually, as it happens. But he kept going, and he stayed here for a number of months in Watford, mainly in Watford, and recovered. But in Clondulane, they went into the hotel, and they heard a woman behind them saying about the terrible events in Fermoy, and they said they better get going again. But they were stopped here, names taken, but they never didn't realise who they were, and they got back to Mallow and back to Cork that evening. And again, the rest, there's mainly the morning after, literally, again, there was good information, basically. They arrested Mick Fischel, Lark Condon, Johnny Fanning, James Fanning, John Swain in the early hours of Clondulane by a large party of military and RSC on the 8th. And you can see here all the headings. So this was news all over, news around the world, actually, not just, because this is the first British soldier shot since 1916, mortally. They were brought up to, as you see here at the bottom left, Cork Jail. This is actually, this is still here. The Lynchons are there up at UCC even. That's still there. The rest of the jail is gone. They were kept there. And this, you can see it here on the middle picture. That's UCC here, and that was the jail at the time. Now this gate is left. They did an inquest into, this well documented again, into Private Jones the day after, and the wounds were inflicted by some persons unknown. This is what drove the military. They came and ransacked Fermoy, basically, and the first Shropshire. And inside, they could hear him inside in the courthouse, as it happens. They could hear him writing when they were doing the writing outside before they were moved. They kept remanding him. They couldn't stick the charges to him. After 6 weeks, Lark Condon, Johnny Fanning, James Fanning, John Swain were released, as they had no evidence. Mick Fischel they kept Mick Fischel because one of them felt they recognised him. Again, this is up on the board. I won't go through this too much. This is you'll see it on the board, Mick, John, James, John Swain, and Lark Condon. Their heights, ages, what they did, where they're from, and the next to kin. So this is all on the board. That's the arrest warrant. And again, that's just more or less very similar. The only thing is, especially on Mick Fischel in December, that they keep remanding him every week. He keeps coming down. I, for one, refuse to recognise this court. I do not want anyone to defend me or any relative of mine to do so. So they were determined to stick it out. So that's the end of 1919. We're on now to 1920. So Mick is in jail. The lads are back out again, the hardcore of the volunteers. Johnny Fanning is arrested the 2nd of September 1920. This is interment. This is very different. They round up all the I suppose the principal leaders locally. And you can see Johnny Fanning here, Con Lady, others, Paddy Buckley. They're all rounded up, sent over to Wormwood Scrubs by boat over to England. As it happens, this is the picture here, and I see Johnny here on the extreme right, with Paddy Buckley from Ireland and Tommy Condon from Cork. This is after their release, as it happens. But so they're transferred to Wormwood Scrubs, but here you can see Johnny Fanning signing to go on hunger strike on the 21st of April. They want recognition that they're political prisoners. And this is all the people signing, and Johnny Fanning here. So they go on hunger strike in April. They do 17 to 21 days hunger strike. And again, the British are a bit spooked by it. They don't know what to do with all these people on hunger strike. Bear in mind they're on hunger strike back in Ireland as well, in Cork, in Belfast, in Dublin. And one Sunday, in the 7th of May, over that weekend, they transfer him to jail because they were getting quite weak. And here you can see Johnny Fanning being transferred to jail, outside to the I suppose the prison hospital had officers outside the door. And it's not, it's all glorious, but in some respects it's not. This is the lads on hunger strike, and you can see him here fair. Johnny Fanning, now you can see, again, the yellow arrows is released at this stage. But when you see it, they're fair and very weak at some stages. And this is, the locals inquiring, this is a list of who they were inquiring, but locals inquiring about Johnny Fanning. And they had Sinn Féin who were in London, and they give back the information. Again, as I said, the British didn't know what to do. What did they do? They took away the guards one Sunday afternoon, and they left them all escape, for want of a better word, because they didn't know what to do with that many hunger strikes. And this is Mr. John Fanning in the Cock Examiner, released hunger striker a week later. When he came back, his sister Liz was quite instrumental. She was actually interned as well. She brought her in to question her as well into the military barracks, but she gave no information. This is Liz here on the bottom right. So, it's the first release. Yeah, back in business again. Just a bit of information. The RAF are now flying over Clondulane, Ireland, all the whole area every day. doing, and you can read the report and a bit, again, to be online to be a lot clearer. They're just seeing who's about, and Ireland Bridge about just over across the river actually, about 20 men on the bridge did not attempt to hide when we flew over the bridge, so they come back and write up all these reports. There's local elections here as well. In Cork, Tomás McCurtain now is the Memorial Fund, and here we see Ignatius O'Brien Clondulane contributing £1. The elections in the old school up the road, that's where they were held. Dave Barry, Lanworth, John Fanning, Clondulane, Martin O'Keefe, and Ballino were co-opted. So they're all volunteers. They're all officer volunteers, actually. Mr. Joyce was elected chairman, and Thomas Barry vice chairman. So they're more or less taken over from my rural council. They're all co-opted. The elections itself, then you can see here the Sinn Féin, James Braslin, William Jones, William Rice, receiving the vast majority of the votes there. So Lucas, Kilbarry, 26th of June, 1920. Again, fairly well documented, but just to go through it, Liam Lynch asked Lar Condon to get information on any officers, and Lar more or less said to him. So I was talking to Lucas there last week. He had a punch of tire on the side of the road on the way out at Kilbarry there. And he said, what? Like, this was so back to Liam Lynch and with the information, and asked him to get more information. So Lar met Liam Tobin at Neil's, informed that Tom Neil was bringing Lucas out fishing the following Saturday. So they got together. Johnny Fanning was not long out of prison, actually. He wasn't allowed to go on this. That was a common thing. Liam Lynch would not leave lads fresh out of prison after Mick Fischelt's arrest, not go on these raids. Plus, he probably would be known locally as well. He got the picture with Tom Cavan in the car and sent dispatches to Ireland to organise it. So, again, this is the Logan the River here, the Black Water, with Kilbarry. You can just about see it here. And this is the house itself then, at the time. These are principally the ones involved. Liam Lynch, Sean Moylan, George Power, Lar Condon, Paddy Clancy, Owen Curtin, quite a few from Ireland. And these were the officers. Brigadier General Corporal Lewis, Colonel of the Artillery Terrell, and Danford. You can just about see him here. So they raided. What they didn't realise was that they knew, I suppose Lucas was going to be there. They didn't realise there was going to be two colonels there. So they then had to take this car here, which is the one in the middle, which is Danford's, or Lucas's car, actually. This is what it looks like. And they head off. They put Curtin, the driver, in one, George Power, Colonel Till, Sean Moylan. The other car driven by Owen Curtin, Liam Lynch, Colonel Danford, Paddy Clancy, and Lucas. And they head off out towards Rathcormac here, out to Kilbarry here, I should say, this arrow, out along. And again, well documented, but we'll go through quickly that there was a struggle in the car. The two lads spoke Arabic, the officers, and they had a right module just because it was an American car. They noticed that your man was kind of no more than we do these days. The steering wheels on the opposite side, he was veering. So and one of the bends, they kind of pushed him and he crashed more or less, and then tried to overpower Paddy Clancy and Liam Lynch. And long and short of that was Liam Lynch got the better of Lucas, but Paddy Clancy was under pressure with Danford, and Liam Lynch shot Danford to say, because Danford was about to choke, actually, Paddy Clancy. They basically left him there, so they went off in one car, and then the other car they sent back to Rathcormac to get a doctor. They left the two colonels on the road, wanted to look after her, and to get the doctor, and then they were sent also to go to Dublin and let them know what happened. The one thing about it, the handcuffs here, these were captured in Ireland barracks, and Liam Lynch would not put these on Lucas as he was an officer. Obviously, after this, they put him on him. And they continued on then to Lombardstown, where they had safe houses. And again, that story is fairly well documented. Here you see the worldwide, from Australian newspapers, American newspapers. It was massive news, and it was news every day. Again, ironically, Lucas was brought to Fermoy so they wouldn't to calm down the troops. What did they do? They rioted again and wrecked the place again. You can see it all boarded up here. Again, they're now searching Clondulane after Kilbarry. And this is again well documented. Direct from but then they headed for Clondulane the day after. They searched Thomas and Julia Swain's house here, just in front of Carysville, the lodge there. They searched Thomas Natty Hadlin's house at 4 cottages here on the line. They searched John Leahy's, which is just probably the ruins there now. And they also go up to James and Fanning's here as well. Now they also searched John and Joseph O'Meara, which I haven't been able to locate actually. And they also go to the pub as well, which at the time was, Crosses, but there's Kelleher's actually were from Fermoy were actually running the pub at the time. and they wrecked the pub as well. So you can see the reports here. This is what they were at the time, what they looked like. These are, I have no picture of Clondulane, but these are all local. This is exactly Ireland, Ballyduff here on the top. We're at Cork in the truck. You can see the horses here at McCollop, and down in Fermoy here at the bottom, all along, and train station and Road Fermoy as well. So these out, they all come to Clondulane, and this is, they target Hallins first, and they pull Tommy, the 67, and his wife out of the bed. The ones in black, bold writing, is the volunteer. So this is Atty Hanlon Arthur. He works at the mill. He's an All-Ireland football actually for Cork, and volunteer, a winner. And the one the army military, are you Sinn Féiner? And he says, I am. And they say, shoot him if he moves. And they brought him all outside in the yard. And they actually went in, Annie Hanlon is still inside the house. But they tried to, they have straw inside in the house, and they set fire to it. But Maggie here, 36, the daughter, she runs in and quenches it. Otherwise, our mother would have been burnt in the fire, actually. They tried to burn the house and just drove off. They stole the chain, silver cassette, cigarette cassette, and about 30 shillings. They actually missed £10 in notes as subscription for the McCartan Fund. So they continued on in the same manner, and this is Atty Hannon here. They went to John Leahy's house. Again, Tom was a volunteer, more or less the same. Thomas and Julia Swain's house in Carysville. Now they had John Swain, Thomas Swain, and David Swain, the volunteers. They all ended up actually going. John had been arrested, if you remember, for Wellsden. They actually immigrated quite soon then, 1920, and soon after the Civil War. And this is Thomas Swain, the father, again. So you can see the newspaper here, Clondulane Disturbances, a night of terror in Clondulane, as they called it. They continue on to the pub, the Kelleher's in the pub. They go up to the Rices then and create havoc again. Likewise, try to burn it, actually. And again, the lady saves the day there. Not a local, but Dennis O'Connell was shot and wounded while cycling near Clondulane. This is the report here. Again, by just a car with Brown. So when the military raided here, they weren't in uniform up in Straw Hall. They were in Rices. They were disguised. They were just in ordinary. And if you ever heard of Longcrest, which we won't go into, that was where that came into. He was the one that he's placed in Fermoy. They came out of uniform and into ordinary clothes. But they see him doing it. One thing of note in the paper here actually was the Clondulane goat incident the same night. There was a military sentry while they were raiding the houses, and he heard something in the bushes and pointed his gun down to the bush as the rifle and said halt, but nothing was happening. So he was about to shoot, and before he knew it, a goat had come out and blew him over. So in fairness, even the goats here were Republican out here, in fairness. They were fighting the British as well, so you had them well trained. Again, moving on, the brigade is now organised. In Limerick, the flying column has been set up by Donegal Halligan, the first one. Liam Lynch with Ernie O'Malley here come down and start training out near it's Badger's Head in Denville there. And you can see Lark Condon is there and Johnny Fanning here. And amongst other famous, Danny Shinnick, Dan Daly, Dan Brown. These are Paddy McCarthy, George Power. Some of these paid with their lives actually later, but they were all very much involved. Straight away into action in Mallow Barracks. Again, I won't go through too much because you're pretty well aware of it. Ably assisted by Dick Willis and Jack Bolster, really. They were but again, one that Lark Condon and Johnny Fanning would have been on this. Bear in mind, Mick Fitzgerald is still in Cork in jail, and this is a picture outside the courthouse. And we know it's 1920. It more or less fits one of the descriptions exactly when Mick Fitzgerald was brought back here to be tried again. He kept being tried, kept being remanded every week. But he asked for Johnny Fanning outside there. That's the RIC here, you can see. He asked me to speak to Johnny Fanning, and he said, the Crown says I'll put a rope around our necks. So Mick is well aware. At this stage, Mick has actually elected himself to the Board of Guardians in Fermoy as Vice Chairman. The trial is fixed. They want to try and move the trial to Derry, but they refuse. But they go on hunger strike then, on midday, the 11th of August, 1920. Strange enough, the day after, Tomas McSweeney was arrested. The strange part of this was they also, by default, arrested Liam Lynch, Sean Hegarty, and Mick Leahy. As Floyd Dunn, who said it was the British force had the most important capture in all of Munster. But the military did the arresting. There was no RIC there. They didn't know who Liam Lynch. Liam Lynch gave a false name, as did Michael Leahy. Like they'd captured two brigade officers, battalion officers, and they didn't know it. But they were so I suppose they wanted Terence McSweeney, and they were blinded by that. They didn't realise who the rest of them were, and when they did realise, they released them. and didn't realise who they'd released. They had no, if they had RIC there, there's no question they'd have known who they were. The war would be very, very different in Cork, it's believed. But they didn't. They released them and didn't realise it and searched Cork for 2 days. In 21st of August, Mick Fitzgerald becomes the prison leader. They're on hunger strike. He was receiving daily visits from his stepsisters, relatives and friends. It's getting more serious than all the hunger strikers are 1920, August. And public scatter, now you can see him here on this picture here, outside Cork Jail that I showed you earlier, praying and saying and they could hear this inside. They could hear the crowd. They used to march out from the city centre every evening. It's quite remarkable really, but the whole city stops work on the 24th of August from 11:15 to 11:30 to go to Mass to pray for the prisoners. Here you can see the crowds in the outside City Hall, 30,000 sign a petition, and this is actually 40,000 on the Grand Parade, and they march out with the Cork Volunteer Pipers Band out to the prison. Again, they cease work in September again. In early October, Mick and his fiancée, Sis Condon, Mrs. visited him constantly. They decide to get married. Mick is getting quite serious at this stage, and in October he becomes prostrate and unable to drink water. And he actually barely recognises his stepbrother-in-law. But going back to Sis, who is Sis Condon? Sis Condon is a Commemoration member here from Clondulane, from Cork. And again, you can see there are many all volunteers. Her brother Willem here, Lar Condon, her brother, Thomas Condon, and our other sister Moll. They got engaged. Mick, they wanted to get married, but the prison authorities put a condition that there'd be no more visits allowed if he got married. And Mick didn't want that. They wanted the visits to, as much as they wanted to get married, and Sis was in agreement in some respects that there wouldn't be visits then, because he felt that all the other prisoners was too much. We'll come back to that. We'll probably just go to the next slide here. And I think, so this is the wedding ring up here, and the brooch, and the back of the brooch that Mick had under the pillow ready to go. And I believe the people that have these photos are here tonight, so hopefully meet him after, that kindly gave us these photos. I think it's Thomas O'Mahony, I believe he's here anyway, that has, these are still in the Condon family, I think in Youghal. So this is Mick Fitzgerald. We generally just see the head of Mick Fitzgerald here actually in this famous picture, but actually here's Sis Condon, his fiancée, and Sis's sister Moll. Sis is Nora, is Evans, and Moll is Mary. And this is in the British papers about the I suppose the engagement. But going back to what happened to Sis after, she was in the volunteers, but she ended up in Ballyduff, and she was a priest housekeeper, never married. You see her in, she's dressed in black here obviously, and here she's buried in Ballyduff at the age of 83. Ballyduff Upper, that is. So Mick Fitzgerald is quite serious now, as are the hunger strikers as well. And bear in mind, Terence McSweeney is over in London. Mick is now semi-conscious. He's getting visits from Lar Condon, Mostumi and Paddy Ahern, in case he wants to give information back. Now the lads said our brothers or stepbrothers are making all this to get in. The lads head back to Fermoy. And Paddy Ahern goes in case Mick regains consciousness. He's now unconscious. Paddy gets a pass from Sis Condon, O'Brien and Cork, coming him on as if he's his brother Patrick, a brother of Mick. And Paddy goes in at 6 o'clock, and there's 4 priests and 4 I think nuns enter along with friends and relatives, and they begin the Decade of the Rosary on the 17th of October. And again, outside, the thousands are here. They could hear the people saying the Rosary outside. Unfortunately, the day that at 10 to 10, Mick Fitzgerald passed away in Cork Jail, and one of the nuns proclaims he's gone, as they're in the second Decade of the Rosary, third Rosary. The band outside the news got outside and they started playing, wrapped the green flag around me. Paddy Ahern telephones from my post office was to me. Again, Mick's death in some respects is glorious, but the horror of it, that Paddy Ahern's role in that night was so that rats wouldn't get to him inside the prison. That's how bad the conditions were in the prison that night. The priest, Father Fitzgerald, who would in every day to Mick, goes out to the rest of the hunger strikers and tell them, and you can see how they say our leader is gone. Mick Fitzgerald's funeral. Mick, again, I have a separate presentation on all this, actually, hopefully do later on in the year on Mick itself. Massive crowds in Cork, or the whole way down along. He couldn't go to City Hall because they were expecting Terence McSweeney, which he did die the week after that he was due there. He was in the same state. When he came to, this is from my here on the bottom left, with all the volunteers and family, and that night then at 8 o'clock, Liam Lynch arrives and the lid is removed and he pays his respect. And Matt Flood recalls it, he was in guard there. He says, if I ever saw sadness in a man's face, it was in Liam Lynch's face that night. Because again, he'd lost his best buddy, as we know, from the Knockmill Downs, tragically later on. The military only allowed 50 to march with the funeral, but they cross over at the railway bridge, the viaduct, and thousands go up. So again, the last post is played, and the firing party, Johnny Fanning, Dahi O'Brien, and Paddy Ahern, get back up later and even to fire shots. And again, here you can see New York, all the volunteers make same day actually. Terence McSweeney dies a week later, as did Mike Patrick Joseph Murphy, and here we see Kilcrumper. And Mick was the first one interned. So Mick was a horrendous loss, really. Liam Lynch does something again. He does it first. He sends the battalions. The brigade flying column is too big to manage, they reckon. So he sends them back to their own brigade areas and gets them each to form a flying column. And this is for my one, the very first one. They went out to Blackstone Bridge here, between Cormac and Watergrass Hill. And they wait there all morning, actually. They're waiting for the bridge, they're passing through quite regular. And again, just to give you an idea, this is where they organise. My battalion is here over behind the stone wall, and likewise here. This is the bridge. Now, they were a bit exposed, so they dug holes here, embedded 4 volunteers either side of it to make sure they cover the bridge. They waited all day, basically, and that evening then they could hear, the scout said that there was, Moss Toomey was in charge of this, basically, and he says any more than 3 lorries, not to attack him, is too much, but quite a few lorries came, but right at the death, at the time, a funeral party of 30 or 40 horses and traps came this way, and the military 5 lorries were coming this way. And it would have just been a massacre, so they held off. Moss Toomey gave the order not to shoot, because the 2 would arrive at the same time, the funeral party and the auxiliaries. But again, you can see the Clondulane volunteers quite... So this is the flying column, and they were supplemented by volunteers. Moss Toomey, Johnny Fanning, Powder Maloney, Billy Toomey, Paddy Egan, Thomas Wayne, Eddie Hallen, and Tom Leahy. And again, this is the bridge here, as it is today. And you can see the motor. It's right beside the toll bridge, actually. The toll bridge is about here, of the new motorway, and the old Cork Dublin Road. Again, their Clondulane information, they raid Clondulane after this in some respects. They arrest 24 at the mill itself on 23rd of December 1920. You can see here, this is the English newspapers actually, all these head and round up suspects at the mill. And they follow up that then 6 days later and arrest another 12 at Clondulane. Now, when I say they come to Clondulane, they actually search every house in Clondulane, in the village. And again, like before, they'd wreck the place really as such. They're not, so now we're on to 1921, coming towards the end in some respects. It's not all glorious in some respect for the volunteers. They have the Clonmult ambush in February 1920, which is, as you can see here, 12 volunteers were killed and 2 more executed. The significance is that, and this the statement here on the right, I think it's Johnny Fanning's, I think, the Conleddy and that column was not too far away, and they could hear it to some degree. One of the volunteers escapes in the pike, actually the company commander, and he eventually finds them. Takes a bit of time, and they come. But when they get it, this is what they see. They see a smouldering house with the lads gathering what's left. The British have left. So it could have been very different if they got the information. They could have had a rear guard action. But again, terrible. My battalion goes out to McCollop in Scartna here, which is McCollop Cemetery in yellow here. It wasn't there at that time, as it happens. And again, they come out very well organised under Conleddy. They fall a tree. They come out black and tans. The military come out from Ballyduff, and the ambush site, they start opening fire. Again, the wires were to be cut here to Blackwater, but they weren't cut, and they could hear. They set the planes up, as it happens, and they could hear them coming out from mine. So they went over towards Ballysaggart, Ardlin, and the plane actually that day on the side of the mountain, they were very exposed. They don't know why they didn't shoot, but before they got into the wood, they could see the machine gun in the plane. And again, there was one RSC person killed there. What they realised was very effective, actually, was sniping at the barracks. Because, and you can see the reports here, they had captured these Hodgkins gun in Mallow, and they go out, not just the Hodgkins gun, but rifles at night time and snipe for 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And what they found was that the troops came out the morning after, they didn't sleep at all, they were absolutely wrecked, and they were jittery. So they actually did quite a bit of this. They all know that they should have done this earlier. And a lot of that was done from here as well. You can see here's Conleddy's statement. They did them from Moore Park, Kilworth, the Airdrome. they were starting to damage the railway at this stage because the British were bringing, I suppose, the military and ammunition from the railway. And this is the first of it, the 5th of April, May and July. At different stages, they break up the railway to disrupt them in Clondulane. The Tallow ambush, again, very similar to Hodgkin's gun. They kill Constable Duddy. Again, it's about getting arms. Francis Creedon is killed there. And this is from my battalion again. Matt Flood is there. Dick and Jack Willis from Mallow there with the Hodgkin's gun. But again, the main reason for this is that the Black Water was impeding them. They couldn't get over the Black Water. So they headed into Waterford. They were instructed by Liam Lynch to go into Waterford because they couldn't head this way. Or they couldn't, head across. So that's why they ended up going into Waterford. By now, we're at the truce on the 11th of July, 1921. So again, Clondulane and the volunteers are right active right to the end. It came as a surprise, as it did to all of them. But it doesn't end there. Now, this thing is finishing here in some respects, but I'll go through the military handover to barracks then in February. As you can see, obviously, as you know, there's a serious amount of them around here, with Moore Park, Kilworth Camp, from my RSC barracks to my aerodrome, from my military barracks, new and old. And by March, they'd all been handed over to George Power and local officers here. And Lara Condon and Johnny Fanning went in and took over separately. Lara Condon was one of the ones arrested here, as you can see, in 29th of December. Along with the 24. And this is his charge sheet. 4 charges they have against him. He got 2 years hard labour. He's guilty of some, not of others. And he was brought to barracks. When he was searched, he had a signed letter to the OC of the 4th Company regarding attack, signed a battalion commander. Another from Captain, he's asking how many nuns. This is a dispatch that they were carrying around. This was found on him. So in effect, looking not to be court-martialed and shot, really. But in the court case, or the court martial, they plead that maybe he wasn't. He was just carrying the courier. In fact, he was the one issuing it. So in some respect, he got off light. But now the truce is coming. He's in jail. Doesn't stop him. He's in Kilkenny prison. And along with 47, he leads them to escape. This is the prison here, Kilkenny jail, no longer there. And when you read down this, Larkon is the one that leads him. And there was actually a priest, as you can see here as well, amongst the fugitives, and Frank Pine from Ballybreen as well. And they got all the ways from Kilkenny across the Swab and did everything to get back to Fermoy and Clondulane. Likewise, Moss Toomey was arrested around the same time in 29th December as well. And again, he's found with documents, as you can see here, volunteer training about burning of force in his possession. And again, he gets 2 years imprisonment. And again, this is all his charge sheet. Again, you'll see all this detail online, more detail. Similar mindset to Lar. He was sent to Spike Island with escape in their mind. And again, this is well documented. They escaped, and very quickly here, this is Spike Island, a great tour as it happens, if it well worth going to it from Cove. That's the prison here, and you can see a bit more detail here. This tour held in this block, A block. And so all these, Dick Barrett, Henry O'Mahony, Jack Eddy, Paddy Buckley from Ireland, Moss Toomey, Clondulane, Bill Quirk from Feathered, and I can't think now for a second, but so these are all the officers, the main people there. And they basically did put a hole in the floor, upstairs, downstairs, and put, as if there's people sleeping upstairs, they came into the count, it's okay. There was a gate here, and they complained to the British that it was too messy, so they said, go and clean up yourselves. They had been throwing rubbish into it, actually. And bit by bit, over time, they broke the bars in the gate and cleared it and threw rubbish back in. So this night, they cleared run through, over the wall, out to the back here, and down along. Again, there was a boat. It was a very, very bad night. There were searchlights flying, but the waves were quite rough. And Jack Eddy from Ardmore swam out to get the boat when they got there was out here. But he actually swam out, cut the rope, and brought it back. And the rope and the knife even fell while he was there. And eventually got over. Such a rough night, I reckon, and got away. So again, Moss Toomey escaped during the truce. Just all the arrests in from Clondulane. So as you can see, there's quite a lot. And I've gone through most of them, as you'll see along, and you'll see them here again. Quite a few more. Some in Ballykenler, and I just have a very quick side. Johnny Fanning again goes to Ballykenler, 1920. Ted Heskin is transferred down to Spike and into Bear Island, down here, as you can see way down. And again, some of the records here on the left, would see the arrows, that's their names from being arrested. Atty Hanlon, here he is signing a book, a prison book, which is common. Arthur Hanlon in Gaelic, and they're all little sayings they made up. God made the Irish, God made the Dutch, but when God made the English, he didn't make much. So there's Atty Hanlon being artistic. And again, you can see here Clondulane for and he was in Ballykenner, way up north. Again, Patrick Hanlon is up in Ballykenner again. Here you can see his name. He's actually a cut leader appointed. There's Patrick there on the right. Pat Coughlin is in the Ballykenner again. So there's quite a few Clondulane up there. They have nearly a football team up there at this stage. And they did play football. Here we get Pat Coughlin in Ballykenner. You can see Pat's name here, again, the bottom left. Pat Coughlin, Clondulane. And this is Clondulane here, or not Clondulane, this is the Ballykenner, the mountains up in the Mourne here. Mountains of Mourne, I should say. The huts where they were interned. John Egan, again in Ballykenner. You can see his name here. Thomas Egan, he's in Spike Island as it happens, and then moved to Cork Male Prison. Pat Egan, again arrested, I don't know where he is actually. And Thomas Swain again is in Ballykenner. That's a young picture of Tom there. So again, there were a lot of them up there. Now the officers, who are the officers? We went through them earlier. Clondulane, as I said, really came into being in 1921. So William Murphy, Bill Toomey, Thomas O'Neill, Patrick Coleman and Michael Barry as in Moss Barry. So they were there. But really, I suppose the principal officer, these ones here in the black that you're reading, this is throughout from 1917 up 1921. Johnny Fanning, the familiar names, Johnny Fanning, Mick Fitzgerald, Lark Condon, Mick Fitzgerald, rising through the ranks. And again, you can see all the Fermoy officers here as well, all very prominent personnel. Same likewise the Fermoy battalion. As you can see, it's as they move to the ranks, as I was saying earlier. And again, Moss Toomey rises to the 2nd Southern Division, one of the highest ranks, adjutant to Liam Lynch. Where were the safe houses here? There was some. Naturally, there wasn't too many safe houses here because it's too close for my really. It's too quick, easy to come out. The safe houses were further. But there was a famous incident in Clondulane House here where the soldiers were up playing billiards, and in Sheehan's, Eamon de Valera was hiding. This is what's left of the house here. He was in hiding, all within reach, with all their searching. And de Valera was staying under there. But generally, Clondulane wasn't the place. They were very well organised. They didn't have safe houses in Clondulane for obvious reasons. We'll come to I suppose, one of the things I probably heard a lot about from my father and his father and mother and all them from Ireland is that crossing of the Blackwater. They couldn't go over Fermoy Bridge. So how did they get over? So at Clondulane Weir, and again, this was simply to avoid the bridge, and it was manned. They simply would have been arrested. Who did the manning? This man here on the left, James Fanning. And again, remarkably, this was never discovered from 1919 to 1921. Through the Civil War, this was there as well. And it was James Fanning did it. And I'm just going to now switch over. Tommy will just put on the thing. So this became very important, and you'll see why now in a minute with the people that crossed over through here. Because this is the way coming from Cork to Dublin. It still is the way coming from Cork to Dublin. But that time you couldn't go through the bridge in Fermoy. You had to either cross the river at some stage. So it was a fairly critical time. So we just have a short video for you here. Enjoy. at no expense, obviously. We paid the actors there, as you can see. So, yeah, that's a reenactment of coming across. You'll see why that was so vital now in a minute. I'll just say one thing about it. They're way too old, by the way, for volunteers. They were, I won't say what their age they are, but they should have been half their age. That was the people involved. But as I said, we expect it's paid no expense. This is just going to come back into my computer now in a second. So, who were the national leaders coming through here? As we said, Eamon de Valera, Ernie O'Malley, Todd Andrews from Dublin. From Tipperary, Dinny Lacey, Sean Tracy, and Dan Breen. In fact, they came through here in nearly not long after the war started, 1919 actually, and they continued to come down. Continued with the Cork, Tom Barry, David Kent, obviously Liam Lynch quite regularly. Sean Moylan, Tomas McCurtain, Liam Deasy. From Kerry, we'd had Austin Stack and Desmond Fitzgerald from Kerry Stroke Dublin. So that's the significance. That's only but the main thing is that the volunteers were able to use it and they were very safe. Clondulane arms. These are arms in Clondulane, and they're in private possession. But I have a few here actually. So these are the real deal, decommissioned, don't worry. I tried them out and marked there earlier. No effect. So this is actually, sorry, the first one there, the Luger. The German gun on the left, that's what this looks like. Now these are in the possession of Moss Reedy there from Ireland. He's down there hiding somewhere. But he realised, we informed, they were only just over the Connor Road. These were found, if I remember rightly, Moss, in well wrapped, as you can do, in perfect condition, in a barrel hidden in an arms dump, which is a ditch, in effect. So exactly as I was saying earlier, that's where these came from, and they're in perfect condition. They were given into the guards and they butchered them by welding rods inside them anyway, but they're still quite heavy. So that's the Luger they want to see here. So that's not the one here. These are in Clondulane and in possession as well by private people. Again, the one on the left in is the Webley revolver. So this is the Webley's here. There's a short one, which is a standard one, and the officer one, which is the longer one. And the one thing when you give these to people, the first thing they'll do is this. They're quite heavy. And the last one that came out of that raid, that just over the road here, was a Peter the Painter. This is an automatic cartridge here, and it'll be here after, but we'll mind them just to, if people want to have a look at them there. But these are in the possession of Clondulane. Mark himself has this bayonet, which I believe was found out in the locally, just found in the field. So again, it'd be remarkable for us to find. It's actually it's a French bayonet actually, quite in good condition, as it here as well. And there's lots of this. So here's the arms dumps. As we said, Clondulane Mill, Clondulane Store, the Borean leading up to Fanning's, leading up the double laurel hedge at Clondulane's house entrance, in Lane's Gate Pier in Cork. There was a false concealment in it. And if I'm being honest, that's only the fraction of it. There's a lot more, and I'd love to know if you know where they were hidden. There was a lot more than that. And here on the right, you can see Johnny Toomey with I'm sure it's a decommissioned revolver. Decommissioned, I've no doubt. The Clondulane volunteers, you see this in summary, I have 102 here, there's actually 103 up to this stage. The one thing definitely is there's a lot more coming them on. They listed during the pensions all the men that were in the IRA. They're coming on, they didn't at the time, unfortunately. But again, we'll come back to that. And the reason I'm saying Mark was too old for it, amongst myself as well. In 1914, on the left-hand side, the average age of the males was 19 when they started, the average age. That means some were 16, some were maybe 20-something. At the height of it, the average age was 26. So they were very young, very, very young. And that's actually a bit more than normal. Normally that 26 is about 24. They were very young to be officers of, as you can see, Liam Lynch, officer of 3,500 men, and ultimately officer of about 20,000 men. The women weren't too far behind them. Their average age 21, 1914, and then 28. So again, not to underestimate that, there would have been some 30 or 36-year-olds in it, so there was some lot younger than that in it. Again, volunteer pictures. And again, I won't go through all this. This is a football team from the GA book, which is a great source of what happens. But basically, you can see the whole team is volunteers. And we'll go through these after. Every one of them that I've highlighted were in the volunteers in Clondulane. So basically, everyone was in the volunteers. And this is the hulling team from Clondulane again. Very similar. As you can see, there's not too many that weren't. And again, that detail, we'll see this a lot clearer in the video when if you want to go it down. What's the legacy? So that's more or less the end of that. What's the legacy? Liam Lynch Kilcumper here, you see Moss Toomey in 1956, given the oration when it really commenced in earnest. With also Jack, and I said Christy O'Callaghan, they are a relation of Liam Lynch, grandnephew Liam Lynch, and his Jack Placidus, brother Placidus Lynch here again, and Brady Keys actually, Liam Lynch's Liam Fonse there on the black and the left. So Liam Moss Toomey gave the first oration when it started in earnest in September. There had been other commemorations before that. This is Lar Condon here. Lar was the chairman of the Liam Lynch Commemoration Committee, 1956 to 63. And the letter is in 1964, in effect, Lar handing over the baton to my father. That's my father there on the top right. And my father was extremely proud of that, still of all the letters. And I see Sean and Morocco here, and some of the, for my Commemoration Committee here, the sequence hasn't changed ever since. It's still exactly the same sequence. And Sean is still saying Decade Rosary. And but that's Lar handing over the baton. Again, a couple of years later, you can see Lar Condon here, very prominent, Johnny Fanning here, a bit bright in here now, but again, it's quite a good picture actually. And you see a few other locals from my Matt Flood, Paddy Ahern, Paddy O'Brien from Liscarroll, again, very great friend of mine here as well. And again, this is the Clondulane and the coming them on the bottom right here, and marching out very proudly with their badges. And I see a few people have the badges here at night, which is great to see. I'll just go back there a bit slightly. Sorry, it's a bit quick there. Mick Fitzgerald's then, there's quite a lot. Obviously, the Mick Fitzgerald monument here on the left. In 1968 and 69, towards the 5th anniversary. Again, that picture on the top right is quite clear enough. You'll see again the familiar faces there, and obviously the name in the village is named after Mick Fitzgerald Place. And I probably would echo what Mark said earlier. If any politicians listen to that, they should put up a name on it. You know, it's worthy of a plaque, really. And here's the continuation of the legacy. Hard at work there early in the week. Different, not rifles, shovels, but still equally important. Very proud men. And likewise, I'll finish up with this one here then. The volunteers, and Susan and Ollie as well, with their technical assistance. So that's that. We're going to, the last bit of this, that's the history of it. The last bit is the townlands. So I'm going to switch over to another one here, and this just plays itself. In some respects, that's, to me, this is what it's all about. Yeah. So these are pictures that we've got. These are your people, really, Clondulane people, men and women, the 103. And we'll talk after, but we'll just put this through music.
Be proud of where we've been. For what would we be proud of now, if not for old 16? For hope our heroes gave their lives, a dim-lit dream defend. To pave the way for peace they prayed, a broken nation mend. read in exile laid to rest when the poet pierced their side. No peace there'll be while we're unfree, so swell the turning tide. Once scholars, now stood soldiers, with the sword to play thy pen, as they followed fearless footsteps to the tone of martyred men. For her gallant sons and daughters, the dawn that soon would come. The bold and brave, no more the slave by Easter's rising sun. The burden bore, an oath they swore as history lay in wait. Proclaiming pride, all freedom cried, 'twas love that sealed their fate. Some whistled as they walked their last, with grace behind the mane. A beauty born as shots were torn, no sacrifice in vain. Respect to you, O fallen friends, we're born of deeds you've done. 100 years remembered, and for hundreds more to come. Be proud of where we've come from. Be proud of where we've been. For what would we be proud of now, if not for old 16? For hope our heroes gave their lives, a dim-lit dream defend. To pave the way for peace they prayed, a broken nation mend. In exile laid to rest when the poet pierced their side. No peace there'll be while we're unfree, so swell the turning tide. Once scholars, now stood soldiers, with the sword to play thy pen, as they followed fearless footsteps to the tone of martyred men. Bold and brave, no more the slave by Easter's rising sun. The burden bore, an oath they swore as history lay in wait. Proclaiming pride, all freedom cried. 'Twas love that sealed their fate. Some whistled as they walked their last, with grace behind the mane. A beauty born as shots were torn, no sacrifice in vain. Respect to you, O fallen friends, we're born of deeds you've done. 100 years remembered, and for hundreds more to come. Be proud of where we've come from. Be proud of where we've been. For what would we be proud of now, if not for old 16? For hope our heroes gave their lives, a dim-lit dream defend. To pave the way for peace they prayed, a broken nation mend. In exile laid to rest, when the poet pierced their side.
So that's it. That's the men and women of Clondulane. From the crowd here tonight, you're rightly proud of them. I can see that, as you should be. The one thing, just a few things before I finish up. There's gaps there. There's better pictures out there, I'm sure. There's more coming them on. I'd love to come back to me or Mark in the next couple of weeks. This will be up online in 2 weeks. We can edit this. If I've made mistakes there, I apologise. But we can fix those. There's some, especially these ones here with the lines. This is the list of the volunteers. But I'd love to get a picture of James Barry, who went to London. So you see London after. The other part did Tom Lindsay went to Cork City. But what you must remember here is what I'm trying to do is see where they were in 1921. So you'll see people there. Well, he was in Fermoy. No, I'm trying to get them back to where they were when they were at the War of Independence. So some people went to America. You'll see that they're in the thing after. We'll note where they went after, and some got married and all that. So thanks very much myself. Obviously, thanks to Mark. Wouldn't have happened without him, really. And one, I suppose, thing myself, I probably missed off. I do recall Jimmy carrying the flag as well, actually, in the legacy of Clondulane, Jimmy Fanning, in Fermoy there after his father. But yeah, I'm delighted to do this. Great to see a great crowd. As I said, it'll be up thanks to Tommy. Myself, thanks Tommy here, Tommy Dunn, my nephew. Seamus Sensi will do the editing and Tommy will put up online. It'll be a lot clearer. You'll have plenty of time to go through it, stop it and see what you want. But again, thanks to Clondulane Community Association and the lads that helped, and the school principal as well. It's been a great facility here. You're very lucky to have it. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
We won't keep you long now, lads. I just want to thank a few people. The Clondulane Community Association, Thomas Kinpipe for playing tonight, our County Mayor, Frank Flynn. Mr. Conor Nelligan, the County Commemoration Grant Scheme, for his generous contribution for the plaque, for the sign. Clondulane National School for the use of the facilities, and Principal James O'Sullivan, Seamus Hennessy, Tom Donovan for the audio recording and what have you. Special word of thanks to Podge, Bernie Collins, Jimmy Fanning, Michael Toomey, Luke Heffernan, Shane Carroll, and for putting up the sign on the day below in the village. The traffic management tonight, the lads who played the blinder, thanks very much. The volunteers, the actors, Ali with the drone, Clem Carroll in the boat. I think we were supposed to look like someone in the Civil War, but I think we were like someone out of Peaky Blinders. I'm not saying I look like Cillian Murphy, but I think Pat Morrissey does. That's really it, lads. Just to thank Neil again, yeah. And we're just going to do one little song, and we're out the gap. And tea and sandwiches afterwards, next door. So myself and Ashley are going to just sing one little song.
When apples still grow in November, when blossoms still bloom from each tree, when leaves are still green in December, it's then that our land will be free. I wander her hills and her valleys, and still through my sorrows I see a land that has never known freedom, and only her rivers run free. I drink to the death of her manhood, those men who'd rather have died than to live in the cold chains of bondage, to bring back their rights were denied. Oh, where are you now when we need you? What burns where the flame used to be? Are you gone like the snows of last winter? And will only our rivers run free? How sweet is the life, but we're crying. How mellow the wine, but it's dry. How fragrant the rose, but it's dying. How gentle the breeze, but it sighs. What good is in youth when it's aging? What joy is in eyes that can't see? When there's sorrow and sunshine and flowers, and still only our rivers run free. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank you two lads. I'd like to thank both of you lads what you've done today. I can tell you that. And that's for sure. You made my day a very happy one anyway, I can tell you that. And that's for sure. It was fantastic altogether. Like, and the work you put into it is beyond all. I know what you've done. I have a fair idea. I can tell you that. And I'm very thankful because it was a great honour for me to be below today, to be there for my father and my aunt Liz, especially.
Thanks very much, lads. Tea and sandwiches next door, in this door here. Oh, sorry, 1 second.
And we should just say thanks to this man who's been in touch with us about it and who has run the evening so well. So thank you very much.
Thanks.